Dean Martin, the charismatic crooner, the smooth-talking actor, the eternal member of the Rat Pack, was a man who seemed to have it all. The stage lights adored him, audiences laughed at his charm, and Hollywood doors were always open. For decades, he lived the dream, hit records, sold-out shows, and a personal life that, from the outside, appeared perfect. But behind the sequins, the limelight, and the laughter, darkness was quietly creeping into his life, slowly reshaping what everyone assumed was a fairy tale. Fans have long wondered about the later years of Dean Martin, about how a man who charmed millions ended up facing heartbreak and tragedy. So profound that even the closest friends were left stunned. And the story isn't just about Dean, it's about his wife. Jean Bieger, a woman who shared decades of his life, stood by his side through the height of fame, and eventually suffered alongside him in ways the public could never imagine. Whispers of health struggles, personal despair, and strained relationships started surfacing, and the idyllic image of Dean's life began to crack. Behind the smiles and the drinks on stage were years of challenges, battles with illness, the pressures of stardom, and a private life marked by loneliness and loss. Then came the devastating final, a sequence of events that left both Dean and Jean gone, and the world mourning a couple whose story ended far too tragically. This isn't just a story about fame or fortune. It's about love, loss, and the cruel twists of fate that even legends cannot escape. What truly happened in Dean Martin's final years, and how did his life and his wife's life unravel in a way no one could have predicted? The answers will shock you, sadden you, and make you look at the Rat Pack legend in an entirely new light. Dean Martin wasn't just a singer or an actor, he was a phenomenon. Known as the King of Cool, he had a voice that could melt hearts and a presence that made everyone feel as if they were part of his world. With his effortless charm, sharp wit, and signature tuxedo, he became the kind of entertainer people didn't just admire, they adored. Alongside Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr., he cemented his place in the legendary Rat Pack, a group whose influence still resonates in Hollywood to this day. But beneath the confident smile and the laughter on stage, Dean's life was far from perfect. Fame brought with it pressures few could imagine, grueling schedules, relentless touring, and a constant need to maintain a public image that was both charming and carefree. While audiences saw a man who seemed untouchable, the truth was that Dean's personal life was quietly complicated, marked by struggles that were never shared in the limelight. By the time he married Jean Bieger in 1949, Dean had already experienced a whirlwind of Hollywood highs and personal lows. Jean became his anchor, his companion through decades of career triumphs and public attention. Together, they raised children, built a home, and tried to carve out moments of normalcy in a life dominated by cameras, fans, and the constant demands of show business. From the outside, their marriage appeared to be a storybook romance. The glamorous crooner, the devoted wife, and the life of luxury everyone dreamed of. Yet even in those early years, cracks were beginning to form. Dean's reputation for drinking, gambling, and late-night escapades wasn't just talk. It was a lifestyle he embraced as part of the Rat Pack persona. While this behavior added to his charm and mystique on stage, it created tension behind closed doors. Jean, ever supportive, often had to navigate the delicate balance between enabling the man she loved and confronting the consequences of his choices. Friends later admitted that she was the one who kept the family grounded, who managed the chaos of Dean's offstage life while ensuring that appearances remained polished for the public eye. The 1960s and 1970s brought unparalleled success. Dean starred in hit films, performed to sold-out audiences, and recorded records that climbed the charts effortlessly. But with every achievement came hidden costs, periods of intense stress, health concerns, and a growing sense of isolation. Those closest to him noted that behind the laughter and easygoing persona, Dean struggled to maintain his sense of identity outside of the public eye. And while Jean remained a stabilizing force, the pressure of constantly supporting a world-famous entertainer took its toll. As the years progressed, the contrast between Dean Martin the legend and Dean Martin the man became more pronounced. The King of Cool could still light up a room, but privately he faced challenges that no amount of fame could erase. Health issues, the strain of long tours, and the emotional weight of maintaining a larger-than-life persona began to weigh heavily on him. Even Jeanne, devoted and loving, could not shield him from the realities of aging, illness, and the inescapable loneliness that often accompanies a life lived in the spotlight. Dean Martin's life lays the foundation for the tragedy that would eventually engulf both him and Jeanne. Behind the glamour, the laughter, and the music, a quiet storm was brewing, one that would lead to heartbreak, loss, and an ending far more painful than anyone could have imagined. While the world adored Dean Martin, his private life told a different story, one filled with struggle, compromise, and the constant balancing act of fame and family. For every standing ovation and record-breaking performance, there were moments of tension, fatigue, and personal sacrifice. The glamorous public persona masked the reality of a man battling his own limitations, both physically and emotionally. Dean's marriage to Jeanne was a cornerstone of stability, yet it was never immune to the pressures that fame brings. Touring schedules were relentless, leaving little room for normal family life. Week after week, he would perform, travel, and attend parties, all while Jeanne worked behind the scenes to maintain a sense of normalcy for their children. Friends noted that Jeanne often acted as the mediator between Dean's wild celebrity lifestyle and the demands of family responsibilities, carefully guiding him away from decisions that could have caused irreparable damage. Health issues began creeping into Dean's life in subtle but alarming ways. Years of heavy smoking, alcohol, and the stress of constant public scrutiny started to take a toll. While he remained a commanding presence on stage, private moments revealed a man struggling with fatigue and vulnerability. Even those closest to him admit that Dean often masked his pain with humor, a tactic that allowed the world to see only the confident, charming entertainer. Behind closed doors, however, he was fighting battles that fame and fortune could not solve. Jeanne, devoted and patient, shared in these struggles. She supported him through periods of illness and personal uncertainty, often sacrificing her own desires to safeguard the well-being of their family. Yet even with her unwavering commitment, the pressures of life in Hollywood proved unrelenting. Friends have said that the weight of responsibility eventually took its toll on her health and emotional state as well, leaving both Dean and Jeanne vulnerable to the hidden dangers that accompany long years of fame. The couple also faced growing personal losses and betrayals within the entertainment world. Relationships with friends and colleagues, once close and dependable, became strained as the years passed. Dean's public image continued to shine, but privately he faced loneliness, disappointment, and the harsh reality that fame can isolate as much as it elevates. Jeanne, while a steadfast companion, could not shield him from every disappointment or setback. Financial pressures, though largely managed by careful planning, also added layers of stress. Large homes, touring expenses, and a lifestyle that required constant upkeep meant that even minor missteps could have significant consequences. These burdens, combined with health challenges and the relentless pace of show business, created a fragile equilibrium that neither Dean nor Jeanne could fully escape. By the late 1970s and 1980s, the signs of strain became impossible to ignore. While Dean continued to perform and charm audiences, those who knew him best saw the cracks forming. Jeanne, ever devoted, tried to maintain a sense of normalcy, but the combination of age, health issues, and years of stress created a pressure cooker environment. The couple's private life, once filled with love and laughter, began to be overshadowed by anxiety, fatigue, and mounting health concerns. What the world did not see was the slow unraveling of a life that had once seemed flawless. The king of cool, beloved by millions, and the devoted wife who had walked beside him through decades of fame, were entering the most vulnerable period of their lives. And as the pressures mounted, a tragedy was quietly approaching, one that would leave a mark on Hollywood and fans around the world forever. As the years went on, Dean Martin's once effortless charisma began to show signs of strain. The constant demands of performing, touring, and maintaining his public image had begun to erode the man behind the persona. Friends and family noticed subtle changes. Longer periods of fatigue, quieter moods off stage, and a growing need to retreat from the relentless pace of Hollywood. The man who could light up a room with a joke or a song now struggled to maintain the energy that had once defined him. Jeanne, ever the anchor in Dean's life, remained at his side, providing support and stability. But even her devotion could not shield him from the harsh realities of aging and the cumulative impact of decades spent in the spotlight. The pressures of celebrity, combined with long-term health issues, began to take a serious toll. Dean's reliance on alcohol and the remnants of his party lifestyle, once part of the Rat Pack charm, now contributed to physical decline. Friends and insiders later revealed that his health was far more fragile than the public realized. And each performance, each appearance became a test of endurance. Tragically, Jeanne's own health began to falter as the couple navigated these challenges together. The stress of caring for Dean, managing family responsibilities, and confronting the pressures of fame weighed heavily on her. While the public continued to see them as a perfect Hollywood couple, privately they faced a growing sense of vulnerability and uncertainty. It was a stark contrast to the glamour and charm for which they were known. Financial stability, though largely maintained, was no longer a simple matter. Maintaining homes, supporting a family, and the costs of ongoing medical care added complexity to their lives. And in Hollywood, where appearances often overshadow reality, the couple felt an unrelenting pressure to maintain a facade of perfection. The weight of this dual life, public celebrity versus private struggle, became increasingly difficult to bear. By the mid-1980s, the strain was undeniable. Dean's public appearances became less frequent, and he focused more on private projects and spending time with family. Yet even this retreat could not halt the inevitable decline. Reports indicate that both Dean and Jeanne experienced periods of isolation and emotional strain, highlighting the profound impact of decades in a career built on constant performance and public scrutiny. As the couple faced these final years, tragedy loomed closer than anyone could have anticipated. The combination of health challenges, accumulated stress, and the burdens of fame created a precarious situation. Friends and family could only watch as Dean and Jean navigated a difficult path, one that would ultimately lead to heartache for both. The public, unaware of the depth of their struggles, continued to remember Dean as the king of cool, never realizing the personal battles that defined his last chapter. The contrast between Dean's legendary onstage persona and the private challenges he faced could not have been more striking. While fans celebrated his successes, the man behind the microphone was quietly enduring one of the hardest periods of his life. And Jeanne, his devoted partner, was equally caught in the storm, demonstrating courage and resilience even as tragedy edged closer with every passing day. This period would mark the final, heartbreaking stage of Dean Martin and Jean's story, a chapter defined not by the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, but by struggle, devotion, and the inevitability of loss. The final years of Dean Martin and John Berger were marked by a heartbreaking convergence of fate, health struggles, and the relentless weight of a lifetime in the spotlight. Dean, once the embodiment of effortless charm and vitality, faced a decline that no amount of fame or fortune could halt. His legendary energy waned, and every day became a test of resilience. Friends describe him during this period as quieter, more reflective, and increasingly aware of the fragility of life. Jeanne, whose life had long revolved around supporting her husband, faced her own physical and emotional challenges. The decades of devotion, the constant care, and the pressure of maintaining stability in an unpredictable world had taken a profound toll. While she remained fiercely committed to Dean, the combination of her own health struggles and the emotional burden of watching the man she loved weaken created an overwhelming strain. Together, they were facing a reality far harsher than any Hollywood spotlight had ever revealed. The turning point came quietly, but with devastating consequences. Dean's health deteriorated further, and despite the care and love provided by family and friends, the inevitable approached. Jeanne, who had been his steadfast companion through every stage of fame and fortune, remained at his side until the end. Yet the public would soon learn the shocking truth. Both Dean and Jeanne's final chapters ended in tragedy, leaving fans and friends grappling with grief and disbelief. Their deaths were not the flamboyant, Scandal-filled headlines that one might expect from Hollywood royalty. Instead, they were quiet, painful, and reflective of the very human vulnerabilities that fame had never been able to shield them from. Dean and Jean's story is a somber reminder that no amount of charm, talent, or fortune can fully protect a person from the inevitable trials of life, nor from the fragility of the human body and spirit. Yet even in tragedy, their legacy endures. Dean Martin's voice, films, and performances continue to captivate audiences worldwide. Jean's unwavering devotion and the strength she displayed throughout their marriage remain a testament to enduring love in the face of adversity. Their story, while heartbreaking, also offers a lesson. Behind every star, behind every glamorous smile, there is a human being facing challenges that are often invisible to the world. Fans continue to honor Dean and Jean, remembering the laughter, the music, and the unmistakable charisma that Dean brought to every stage and screen. But their tale is also a cautionary one, a vivid example of how fame, love, and life can intertwine in ways that are beautiful yet profoundly tragic. In the end, the story of Dean Martin and his wife is not just one of glitz and glamour, but of devotion, struggle, and the heartbreak that even legends cannot escape. Their lives, their love, and their final years serve as a lasting reminder. Behind every icon is a story that is human, fragile, and heartbreakingly real. Dean and Jean may have left this world, but the lessons of their journey, the echoes of their laughter, and the music of Dean's voice will live on forever.